Welcome, everybody. As Jessica mentioned, so this is AI 2.0 or 200 level class. So this is like the third AI course in the series that I've helped put on with the VIA. So we did introduction to AI, just getting started, a little bit about security, a little basic prompting. So this presentation is more about advanced prompting, how to get more out of AI. And if we have enough time, we might talk a little bit about agents and automation at the end. So I am Chris Higgins. I am with CCS Technology Group. We are an IT managed services company. So we do outsourced IT, cybersecurity, compliance, as well as application development for businesses all over the Chicagoland area. So I have been doing IT managed services for over 20 years. I hold certifications in both AI as well as cybersecurity compliance. And so been doing this a while. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. But so today, so this presentation is set up to kind of play along. So as we're doing prompts, if you want to substitute your company name and product information into it and see what it develops, feel free. I'm going to be using Copilot today. So Copilot is ChatGPT built into the Office suite. So there are some very important differences between using ChatGPT and Copilot. In ChatGPT, you are helping train the model. So anything you put into ChatGPT, ChatGPT now owns. Whereas if you're using Copilot, if you're putting in company proprietary information, it's never going to leave your 365 tenant. So it's very important distinction. But that being said, if you're a Google person using Gemini or you have ChatGPT and you want to try some of these prompts, all of the strategies are going to work no matter what generative AI platform you're using. And we can go from there. So a couple things that 75% of office workers today are already using AI at work, but 78% of them, like, the company doesn't know about it. So it is important that you put together some sort of AI policy, and whether people are using it or not, what they are allowed to use it for. Otherwise, they could be potentially damaging your company. So I know of an example of a regional bank that had to let go of some of their loan officers because they put protected information into ChatGPT because they didn't know they shouldn't. So definitely information isn't really important. But the core of today, we're going to talk about prompts, how to get better information out of Copilot or ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever you want to use. But I'm going to try and do some specific examples based on roles. So one thing we've learned, the more people we've talked to, is depending on what role you're in, people use it drastically different. So, sales and marketing versus finance, or executives versus hourly employees and stuff, it's very different. So we're going to try and have some practical examples that you can relate to, and then expand on your AI journey. So that being said, a few more people did pop in, so I just want to say that this is being recorded. So cameras and microphones have been disabled. If you have anything you want to ask, or feel free to put it in the chat. So there was one question already. Should we use Copilot in Edge only or not in M365? So that's a great point. So Edge, which was Bing Chat, does have Copilot. So the Edge version is kind of like ChatGPT, so you can use it even if you don't have a Copilot subscription. Copilot is a paid subscription, right? So if you're using the paid subscription, the Edge version will stay inside of your 365 tenant, whereas if you don't have the paid version, you will be training the model. So for today. So I'm going to be using it in the applications, but you can totally use Edge. And I can just show that real quick. So if you're in Edge, of course I get an update. I'll just my Copilot button. So you can use it here, or if you had the search window, there'll be a Copilot button there, and you can drop stuff in. But yes, so play along. But if you don't have Copilot, you could use the ChatGPT or Google search. If you search for something, then it'll give you the AI deep dive, which will use the Gemini. So any of those things you'll be able to use to follow along. All right. So we're going to get started on just a little bit about personal productivity. So the 100 level course, looking at the registration, like most of you took the 100 level course. So I don't want to harp too much on this, but we do have a few people that haven't taken that. So just a few things on personal productivity. There's some things I use all the time that I just absolutely love. Leveraging AI to find emails that I should have responded to, find customers that might be upset about something, create tasks and reminders for myself. I use all of that stuff, and I'm a firm believer that Copilot saves me over 2 hours a day every day. So some days drastically more than. So getting into the different roles. So really, this is kind of just a summary of different types of things that people do by role, right? So sales is, sales/customer service. That might be responding to emails. You got lead generation, right? So help me go find companies in my demographic. Customer engagement, negotiations and closing, post-sale follow-up and upsell, sales analysis and forecasting, right? Those are key things of their role. And then, if you take each one of those pieces of the role and be like, how can I apply AI to make that better? So similar with marketing, you got strategy, you got demand gen, content creation is a huge one with AI, campaign execution, analysis, and then enablement and recommendations. So one fun thing that anybody could do right away is like give it the URL to your website and tell it, like, from an SEO perspective, how can we make our site better or make recommendations. Finance, their role, quote to cash, recording, taxes, planning and analysis, risk management, and on and on. So we don't have to read all of these, but depending on your role, right, these are going to be some of the common pieces. And then it's really hard with any new technology to go, okay, well, that sounds great. How do I use it, right? But if you think about it on more of these smaller things, can I use AI to help me here? Can I use AI to help me there? And then I really like to start with things that consume a lot of time. So, legal might be comparing two versions of a document, right? I mean, if the thing is 16 or 100 pages long, just trying to find the changes could take a while, right? So HR, they're creating a lot of content from, policies and procedures to checklists and all of that. So we're going to start with sales. So some of their key processes, we're not going to generate all of these, but I did kind of pick a few. But so kind of the way today's going to work, I'm going to give a basic prompt, and then we're going to show a better prompt, and then I'm going to show you the content that Copilot created. So for this process, I did take a VIA member company of Flexico. So I picked that totally at random, and then I later found out that Tammy is the board chairperson. So, and she might even be in attendance. So I hope everything that Copilot creates is true and factual, but it's all based on content that's on their website anyways. So we'll go ahead and jump in. So, a new AI user might have a prompt, like generate a product overview, right? So you could give it a reference point. So maybe a link to an Amazon page or your website, or, give it some specific information. But a better prompt would be to create a detailed product overview of our product, insert your product name there, highlight its key features and benefits and selling points, include specific examples of how it helps your clients in your industry, improve their operations and reduce costs. So I'm prompting it that I want to focus on making their operations better and cost, right? So you can kind of lead it down a direction and then also mention any recent updates or innovations as part of that set it aside from its competitors. So not only are we looking at our site, now it's going to look at the general web and look for competitive products, and then also find the compelling reasons why your product is better than somebody else's, right? So I'm going to grab that one. So in the interest of time, some of these prompts, especially the better ones, they'll take a couple minutes to generate. So I just pre-generated them before this thing. So the example I created was create a detailed product overview for the impact for our impact beds and skirts, using as a reference the Flexico website with that page, highlighting key features, benefits, unique selling points, examples, how it helped clients, and also mention any recent updates or innovations. So, and this is what Copilot created. So, it has key features, so belt protection, adjustable through angles, universal components, robust construction, skirting systems. So, and you can see here that with these references, these all came specifically from the Flexico website that I gave it reference to, and same with the benefits. But then this one here came from PRC Industrial. So I'm assuming that's a trade magazine, talking about how it improves safety, reduces accidents, and then extended belt life, productivity, unique selling points, right? Client success examples, recent updates. And so it's grabbing most of this right from Flexico's website, and then the why choose. So, but then as a follow-up question, I asked it if we can identify companies with competitive solutions. Okay, so it came up with the key competitors, and then some industry insights. Now, so if you have a salesperson that's talked to a potential customer and they're like, well, your stuff is great, but we're also looking at XYZ company. So I asked it to find the competitors. Now I found the competitors, right? So, but now I want to know how to combat the competitors' advantages, right? So I asked it to make a customer-facing battle card on Flexico's impact beds and skirting systems, highlighting why Flexico is superior solution, right? So I told it that I want it to say that Flexico's the best, right? So I wouldn't want to generate this and have it slanted where your competitor's better for some reason. So, but it went ahead and it generated, everybo's got about the same impact rating, what they think their key features are, and then the weakness versus Flexico. So, right, it's going to give us that slant that has low, impact rating or vibration or cost or whatever those things are, right? So, Now, the nice thing about having things in the Office suite versus, like using ChatGPT. So all of this is still using public information, right? It's using the public web. It's using things that are available to anybody on the internet. Now, if I worked for Flexico and we had Copilot, it could also leverage internal documentation. So if we had specification sheets or internal documentation, right, it could grab information out of that and use it for this. But then the nice thing is, so let's say I really like what this came up with, I can simply put all of that information right into Word. And so this would work in Word and Excel and PowerPoint and stuff. We're going to show a PowerPoint presentation in a minute. But any of this information that I wanted to grab, all I have to do is either add to the doc or copy the response. I can put it into anything, right? I can share a prompt with somebody, via email or Teams message. And then I can help train it, telling it whether I liked it or not. So you can imagine, creating a document like this, just finding the information, writing the copy, editing and making sure the copy is accurate and there's no spelling and typos and all that stuff. I mean, that could take a couple hours, right? And Copilot did that in about 3 minutes, right? So definitely a really fun example of one way to use it. So the next scenario we're going to talk about, I'm just going to check the chat. Oh, it's still okay. So preparing a sales presentation. So we're going to have it create a PowerPoint presentation for a specific product or service, right? So if you gave PowerPoint just that, right, you could give it a link to your website or whatever, you're going to get a very long and not very good PowerPoint. So, but if I tell it I want it to create a sales presentation for a specific product and service for a prospect, right, include the features, advanced, I guess I should watch what I'm pasting, but detail of what you want to solve and specific challenges. So I'm going to grab this. So I put into Copilot, can you create a 5-slide PowerPoint on Flexico impact beds and skirting using the same reference page, right? Presentation is to be customer facing for a prospect that's considering Flexico versus competitor solution, highlighting the key benefits and unique selling points. Can you make it branded based on the website? So it had the titles of the slides, and then I could tell it to go ahead and make the slides. And then here is the final presentation that it created. So it's branded based on the Flexico site. So I use the comment all the time that consider AI like it's an intern. So if you notice, I asked for 5 slides and it gave me 11 slides. So it could have interpreted that as 5 body content or 5 total slides. But so in addition to the 5 body slides, it gave me a title. It gave me like heading slides so introduction to Flexico, right? So what they're experts in, and then importance of load zone, proper management. So even if you had a salesperson or a marketing person that was very familiar with your product, just creating a branded slide, putting the content in it, editing it so that it fits in the available space, right? Deciding what you put on the slide versus what's a talking point, right? All of those things take time. So whether you get this and maybe it's 80% of the way there, or it's 90% of the way there, right? That intern, you're still going to review their work and either coach it to make better content or just edit it so that you can use it and go out. So it's a great solution. So usually making a PowerPoint out of scratch like this for me, is easily just an hour or two, right? So you probably already have a regular header slide, so you don't have to do all that branding, and then you could copy slides and change the content. But if you start considering the brainstorming time, the mental effort, maybe you have a skills gap in whether your salespeople or marketing people know how to use PowerPoint very well, right? So you could easily save 2 hours just doing this one presentation. This one back out of the way. So definitely some areas that AI can help salespeople, right? So we all know that if your salespeople can be more productive, they can respond to better to customers, revenue increases, and increased revenue makes a lot of things easier, right? So we got somebody jumping in. So definitely some major impacts of trying to use leverage AI for your salespeople. So marketing is another really key area. Marketing does a lot of content generation, and AI is definitely very good at that. So, a couple things to think about when you're thinking about marketing and using AI. So, right, customer insights and strategy. We all kind of get stuck in our own bubble, right? And we're like, this is why we're good. But using it for research, so like we just showed, go find my competitors, go find out why I'm better than them or why I'm not better than them. Content creation, campaign execution, which we're going to talk about a few examples of that. So a basic prompt would be something like, create me a blog post on XYZ, right? So a better prompt is create me a marketing plan, like you're a marketing professional with over 10 years of experience. So one thing that's really interesting when you create prompts, if you tell it the persona of the creator, it will assume that position. But then we're going to point it to Flexico's website, right? But I don't want to just create one blog post. I want to create a series of blog posts, and I want it all to play nice together, right? So I want to create a marketing plan with 12 blog posts, whether that's 6 months or a year, that's up to you, including 4 social media posts for each blog post for Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and include a 3 email campaign to promote each blog with a schedule, and assume the campaign would start January 1, right? So that is much more in-depth, specific to what I want. And then I have the results over here. So I put in create a marketing plan as if have over 10 years of experience for Flexico, include the blog posts, social media, and the schedule, right? So gives me a marketing plan with an objective, right? So we're trying to position Flexico as a go-to expert, drive engagement, target audiences, right? So who are those decision makers? So it's going to use that then in the words that it chooses to create the posts, right? So it's going to use words that would be familiar to them. And then it found Flexico's blog it'll use as reference, and then the social media places we gave it. So it generated the 12 months worth of topics. And then for each topic, right, it came up with, that there's going to be a sample post, right? So coming soon, the takeaway, a deep dive, and then an engagement post. So those would go out once a week, one blog post once a month, one email once a week, and then the email campaigns, and then some sample social media posts, right? So, and then the schedule for the template. So, the next step, if you wanted to refine this and build the rest of it out, you could then just ask it to make the entire social media calendar, right? So, I went ahead and did that. So I took a little different twist, but it totally applies. So, um, so I told it to create a table with all the national holidays, include holiday names and dates, and then to include columns for social media platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, X, for each platform. So you can see here, it generated the holidays, the dates, and then social media posts for all three of those. So it knows whether, like, each social media platform, how long that post can be. Can it use emojis? Are hashtags appropriate, right? And it just generated all of that. So off of this, we could ask it follow-ups like, I like all of those topics. Can you write all 12 blog posts and all the associated social media posts? And a response like that might take 10 or 12 minutes for it to create. But if you think about the time or the money to, hire a writer or to have your salespeople do that, and then, review it, make sure it's accurate, all that stuff, right? Cool. To write 12 blog posts alone is probably at least 12 hours if you give it an hour a piece, right? And then to come up with 3 emails and 12 social media posts for every one of those blogs, you're talking 40, 50, 60 hours worth of work that you can do in about 12 minutes now. So it's one of my favorite things to do. So let it create content. So next one. So another example, I didn't build this one out, but create an entire social media post to promote a new product launch, right? So any specific launch or event or whatever, let social media, or not, let AI tell you how to promote it, right? So instead of going, create 12 posts, be like, I want to promote this event. Tell me how to do it. And then if it comes out and says use email and social media and blah, 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 right? Then to just go in and go, okay, give me the 12 social media posts. Give me the 3 email campaign, all of that stuff. And if you don't have, an email list, right? You can ask it things like, how do I get people on my email list, right? It'll suggest things like customers and prospects, as well as list gen services and, email strategy, other strategies to get email acquisitions. So generate an email campaign. This is one we kind of touched on from that marketing plan, right? So, but one thing I like to do is don't just ask it for one, right? So if you think about your vendors and your customers and stuff, when you get their emails, usually there's a drip, 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 right? So tell it you want to make a 5 email campaign or a multi email series and let it tell you how many is appropriate. It can give you what the right cadence would be, right? So do I send this out once a day or once a week or 2 days before an event and a week before the event? Any of that kind of stuff. It'll help you figure that stuff out. So if anybody does have any questions, feel free to put something in the chat. But we're gonna move on to HR. So HR spends a lot of time creating content, both potentially to new hires and employees, but also checklists and stuff like that. So some of their key roles. So employee engagement, recruiting, compensation, learning and development, talent management. So, whether you have an employee that has another primary role and they also hold the HR role. Maybe they don't have as much knowledge. So leverage AI to help boost that knowledge level. Or you could have a very veteran HR professional that is just really busy, and there's some of these functions that are very time consuming. So we will talk about some prompts for them. So, very common scenario, right? I need a job description. So maybe it's a position you haven't ever really had to post for. It's a new position. You don't really know what other people are either calling that position or what the minimum requirements are in your industry for that position. So, I could just say, write a job description for this job title, shop floor supervisor. Or, if I want to write a detailed job description for a new production supervisor in our manufacturing company and give it your company name, include key responsibilities, required qualifications, preferred skills. So it's going to go out and it's going to see what in the industry is normal for those things. Highlight the importance of the role in supporting our production process. So we're going to give it a positive spin to help attract better people. And then if there's any specific certifications or experience that would be beneficial. So, and then this is what it generated. So we asked it for a detailed job description for a production supervisor, Plexico. And then, so it gave us the role, pivotal leader, blah, 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 key responsibilities, quality control, work planning, assignment, team leadership, process monitoring and optimization. So required qualifications, associate's or bachelor's degree in manufacturing, engineering, technical related field, proven experience. So they want 3 years in a supervisory role, strong understanding of the process, quality standards, and safety regulations, ability to lead teams. So it definitely knows that this is a supervisory level position, not a line worker position. And then the importance of the role. And then it even gives the reference of where it came up with some of these standards and stuff. So myjobsman.com. Never heard of that magazine, but maybe Flexico has. So, building a job description like that, is easily probably a couple hours for the HR manager. If it's not ever been created before, then you probably have some sort of review process, deciding the leadership team if it's adequate or not, and then editing it. So that easily could save a couple hours worth of work for a very busy manufacturer already. So then another example, help me create an onboarding checklist. So that's very vague, doesn't necessarily, you probably wouldn't get all of the things in it that you want, right? Whereas if we say, help me make an onboarding checklist for an HR manager that goes from multi-step interviews, offer letter, background checks, enrollment in health and financial benefits, creating IT-related tasks like creating user accounts, acquiring a computer, email address, assigning roles in the phone system, keycard access control, business cards if required, initial employee swag gift basket, notifying the manager, assigning workplace, include levels of access for hourly employees and salary employees. So we're telling it we want kind of two different paths there. Hourly employees should not have mobile access to web or email, whereas management and executives should have 24-hour access to the web and mobile access to email. So creating that. Here is the checklist that I created. So interview, selection, and process, schedule interviews. So you could obviously then, identify these as like initial interview, manager interview, executive interview, if that was required. Finalize candidate selection, offer letter, benefits enrollment, IT access, which I can say from personal experience often gets forgotten about until 2 days before they're getting hired or before they start. Workspace, where are they going to sit, manager team notification, and then first day prep. And then gives us a grid with access, key card permissions, phone system, in addition to notes, audit tracking. So that's a really good point. It's bringing out, that maybe go ahead and set up that follow-up schedule 30, 60, 90 days, which could get all built into this. So making something like that easily, a couple hours, right? You're going to brainstorm, you're going to look at other people's templates and edit, finalize, all that fun stuff. So, so this is another common thing, just writing responses in email all the time. HR is bombarded with questions from employees like, hey, I'm new, how do I do this? Or what's the process for that? And leveraging Copilot because it knows internal documents, right? So it could then reference like this, if you had how-to docs or processes, it could go and find, this is how you log into the employee portal. And it in Outlook or whatever, you could just say, help me prepare a response for this. And it might generate 80% of it. Obviously use it like an intern, right? You still need to review and edit their work, all that fun stuff. So finance is another really common one. And I've done some really good analysis for customers. So I don't have any financial information for Flexico to use as an example. But if you can, export sales data or production data or something into Excel, there's a lot of different scenarios that you could use. So generating a financial report. So if you want something that's attractive, right, versus just volumes of numbers, you can leverage something like Word or Excel to do that and make pivot tables. That's one idea. Another, that's the same prompt. So analyze financial data for the last 6 months. One that I've done for a customer is they were interested in evaluating what products were more profitable than others. And so we're all in our own head, right? You know what your highest volume items are. You probably know what your most profitable items are. But what's the analysis of everything in the middle? So this customer their specific scenario was they had maxed out production, and they were looking, how do they leverage revenue or product margin without expanding. So we leveraged AI, we analyzed a ton of data, and we found that one of their highest volume items really didn't make them any money. So at first that's like, okay, well, let's just stop making that item, right? If we're just breaking even. But in the cost analysis, as we were leveraging invoice data, right? So it knew who was buying it, the amount it was being sold for, and then in their system, they had estimated cost. So one thing that came out of that data is while that item wasn't highly productive, 80% of that item was purchased by their number one client. So when you start asking it questions like, well, what would happen if I stopped selling this item? So it pointed out the fact that their biggest client buys this from them, right? So they have other things that client's purchasing that are very profitable. So what would happen if you stop selling that item? So potentially that awesome customer might build a relationship with a competitor that still offers that item. And maybe then the rest of their business goes too, right? So that would be a bad scenario. Whereas if you're only looking at the numbers in Excel, you're like, well, we don't make any money on this item. Let's stop selling it, right? So there's a ton of stuff to do in finance. It's hard to demo without live data. And obviously, I'm not going to share live customer data in a recorded call. But so customer service is another great example for AI. So supporting customers, helping with problems, right, and resolutions. So there's a lot of really great scenarios out there, both just using the productivity suite like Word and Outlook and stuff, right, having it help write a response. But when we get into kind of the next level with AI is doing agents. So you could potentially, like if you have policies and procedures and all that stuff, you could load those documents into an agent, and then a customer service rep could be like, how do I have customer with this invoice, blah, 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 and how do I respond to this question, right? And it could go find all that information and spoon feed it to them. So whether it's just a new customer service agent that doesn't know a lot of answers, or you have just high volumes of requests and you don't want to hire one more customer service rep, you'd rather invest a couple $100 in an AI agent to help those people be more productive. So a couple of responses. So let's say you get an email in, and in Outlook, you can use Copilot to help generate a response. So you could just ask it, how do I respond to this, right? And it might give you some information. Whereas if you say, compose a detailed response to customer inquiring about the status of their order, include the current status, estimated delivery date, relevant tracking information, and assistance to further questions that they may have that they didn't ask, right? So you might know, well, everybody asks when's my item going to ship, but what they really want to know is when it's going to get there, right? So you can answer questions that they didn't even ask. So with this one, it's really key to having Copilot have access to your data, right? So there's what are called agents. So agents can connect multiple tools. There's hundreds of already built agents out there that do specific functions in Copilot. So if you have a HubSpot or a Microsoft Dynamics or MailChimp or any of those things, you can already make some of those connections without having a developer on staff. If there are things that you want to connect that maybe an agent's not already created, we do have developers on staff, and we could write API connections. So maybe you have an on-premise SQL server, or you have a different ERP solution that doesn't have a connection to Copilot already, right? So you could write that connection and let it have access to that data. So customer service, that would definitely be key, because things like you want to save them from having to go in and looking what the shipping status is, or what the order status is, and then go, oh, well, it's ready to ship, and then go get the tracking information. So some of that stuff, just, you're talking 5 minutes here, 2 minutes there, 10 minutes there, write the response, right? Where potentially all of that could happen in 2 or 3 minutes instead of 10 or 15 minutes. So handling a customer complaint. So soft skills are really important in customer service. Not everybody has great ones, right? So I know I personally have a habit of responding to somebody's question, and it's short and to the point. And I use Copilot all the time to be like, okay, can you write this a little nicer? But use it to draft a comprehensive response to somebody that's received damaged product, apologize, acknowledge their frustration, offer replacement or refund, whatever those standard things are. So in this example, this is still being prompted, but if you were to add something like an agent, it could automatically generate the response for this. And then somebody would just review it and edit and or send the response. So so it didn't look like anybody that registered had a legal role. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on here, but the difference between writing a contract for a supplier agreement to telling it what is important to you in that agreement, as far as making sure confidentiality clauses happen, stuff like that. I know personally I do a lot of compliance, and so when rule changes happen, there is a lot of comparison that has to happen. So I had to compare two PDF documents that were about 300 pages long, looking for what changed. There was not yet an industry summary out there. And just doing that comparison would have taken 4 or 5 hours. And to be honest, most people, they would get about 50 pages into that and get bored and not do a very good job at it. Whereas Copilot, I put both documents into my OneDrive, so it had access to them. I pointed to those two documents and then asked it what the differences were. And it did a really nice job in about 8 minutes of something that would have taken me half a day. So, some key areas for using Copilot in manufacturing. Having a goal is key, right? So a lot of us are looking to be more productive with less manpower. This PowerPoint slide will go out to everybody that's in. There's some great reference material on here about specific tasks for plant employees or contract lifecycle, product information, stuff like that. But minimizing downtime, supply chain performance, scrap rate, customer satisfaction, employee turnover are all great things to try and leverage AI. But one thing I do want to put out there is, the goal should never be to spend time or money implementing AI, right? The goal should always be, how do I solve this problem? Can I use AI to do that, right? So, what positions in your manufacturing are either overtaxed or need some help, right? And can we leverage AI to do that? There's lots of great ways to do that. So, agents is non-user inputted AI, right? So most of what we've talked about today, the user is prompting, give me this piece of information. So going into agents, you can start doing things like monitor this email box for things that look like this and notify somebody, create a ticket in my ticketing software, create an email, whatever that task would be, and to automate it. So instead of having somebody that has to monitor that, you can do it automatically. And then what the task is, and then what do you allow it to do automatically? So in Microsoft Copilot, there's what's called Copilot Studio. So there is the agent builder. It's free as long as you have a Copilot license for that user. That user can use it. It is drag and drop. There is hundreds of already built connectors. So things like HubSpot and Azure and Contacts and Google Sheets and Teams and meeting rooms, and it's not just Microsoft stuff, but MailChimp and Constant Contact and a bunch of different tools out there, right? So users can create an agent, give it some tasks, have it do it. So then there's Copilot Studio, the platform, which that is more for IT and developers. So, right, this is going to be creating a connection to something that there isn't one already. Uploading data directly into Azure so that it can use it as a reference source. So one thing like we're looking at for a customer, so they have an old ERP solution, right? They have 10-year warranty. They've been on a new ERP solution for 4 years. That server is ancient. It's gonna die. So we're looking at, we can upload the SQL database into Azure, give Copilot access to it, and then we could do lookups out of that and eliminate the need for the physical server. So you're saving power. If you have a managed services provider, they're probably charging you per device, right? So it can reduce that cost. And then you retain that data. Then potentially, if you had that old data in there and you connected it to new data, right? So your current ERP, whether you're in Dynamics or something else, now you could start asking questions about both. So now it gets super powerful and cool. So, and those agents can get built right into Teams. They could get kind of look like they're a standalone app where they have their own screen and window. So lots of different options there. So that customer service scenario that was in there, that was all built into Teams. So, if somebody was standing at like a customer service desk and somebody goes, where's this thing? Or how do I get to there? Right? They could ask the question Copilot, write in a Teams interface, answer the question, give them a document, print something off, email them a link to something. All of those things were possible. So here's a list of the connectors and triggers that are already built. And to be honest, this is only about a third of them. If I put any more on there, they were even more difficult to read. So there is a ton out there. So some of the cool ones, so ArcGIS is in there, GitHub, which is a code repository, Monday, which is a process management tool. So really any role in the business, somebody's using a custom tool, right? Or not a custom tool, but an application to manage their day. And if you can start connecting those tools, it gets much more powerful. So, in summary, really at the end of the day, we want to leverage AI to either increase revenue, so that's going to be on the sales and marketing side, right? Optimize costs, that's probably on, more of the operation side. And then on the HR side, right, employees are hard to keep. So there's a study that was in the AI 100 level course that employees would rather an AI tool to make their lives easier than they would rather have weekly free lunch. So, that weekly free lunch probably costs you, $25-30 a person a week. Copilot is only $30 a month. So you look at the cost savings, especially if somebody is a $60,000 a year employee or more, right? If you could help save them 2 hours a day or reduce their stress and increase employee retention, right? That's the best investment you could make. But, like I said before, the goal isn't to spend money on AI, right? We want to have a purpose and a reason and attack business problems using AI. So, so there'll be a bunch of stuff. We're running up against the 10 o'clock time. So I'm going to leave a bunch of this Copilot agent stuff into the slides. So it's great reference material. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And I thought I had my contact slide in here, but I guess I don't. But Thank you all for coming. If anybody's got any questions that you want to put in the chat, it's kind of we might do a separate video specifically on agents or some of those scenarios in the future. We're also talking about doing doing one specifically for marketing people, one specifically for finance people or whatever, to take a deeper dive into walk through the entire process. Let's come up with the marketing plan for all of 2026, including content. We could probably do all that in an hour. So if anybody in here is interested in content like that, feel free to reach out to the VIA and let them know. So they're looking to put their content list together for next year. So we can definitely put together some stuff like that and record it and have it as a library for the future. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'm going to find my contact slide here. Contact slide. All right, so if anybody wants, so the QR code on the left, there'll be a form you can fill out, and I'll make sure you get a copy of the presentation. The VIA might send it out to everybody that's registered, and yes, we've been recording this, so we're going to edit it up and clean it up a little bit, and hopefully it'll get posted on the VIA's website for everybody to view in the future. But if you want to make sure you get a copy of it, feel free to send me or fill out that form. I'll make sure you get it. And then the QR code on the right is if anybody wants to pick my brain for 30 minutes. So it's free consultation call, absolutely no hard sell, nothing, right? So I've been doing a lot of these presentations, and I really would love to hear how you would like to hear it use AI, and then we can build some content directly around real use case scenarios. So don't think you're wasting my time. I am interested in hearing your side of the story as much as maybe helping you point in the right direction to get started leveraging AI in at your business. So thank you, Terry, for the thumbs up. But thank you all for coming. And if there's any, I'll hang out for a couple minutes, see if there's any questions out there. Otherwise, we are done for the day. Please let the VIA know what you thought of the presentation or any changes that we could make to make future presentations better.